I'm Nina Lübbren. My topic today is women's public sculpture in Weimar Germany's regions, or feminist art history and canon critique. The regional locations I will look at are Bremen, Oldenburg and the small municipality of Jaderberg in North Germany, Dessau and Gera in the state of Thuringia. The State Museum of Oldenburg in Germany owns the works of two women sculptors of the Weimar Republic. Rene Sintenis was active in Berlin. She was the period's most commercially successful and lauded sculptor, represented by Germany's most prominent dealer of avant-garde art, Alfred Flechtheim. Elsa Oeltjen-Kasimir was active in the small North German municipality of Jaderberg, near the regional town of Oldenburg. Oeltjen-Kasimir is and was known to almost nobody outside of her region. She never exhibited in Berlin or any other German center. Her sculpture has a provincial look. Oldenburg curator Markus Kenzler calls it feel-good art. In constructing a woman-inclusive canon, feminist scholars have understandably focused on artists whose work seems to fit pre-existing paradigms of a, in the case of 20th century art, modernist canon. Dorothy Price writes that Lotte Laserstein's art is a, quote, powerful corrective to a masculinized perception of modernity. Writers align the sculptor Mark Moll with abstraction, cubism, and the avant-garde. Star Figura describes Käthe Kollwitz's style as traditional, but her subject matter as subversive, radical, and a feminist touchstone. Recent writers have even aligned Oeltjen-Kasimir with expressionism and new objectivity, highly charged buzz-isms of art historiography. No period reviewer, though, mentioned these movements. Indeed, one writer praised Oeltjen-Kasimir for remaining modern without falling into a modish tendency. Linda Nochlin wrote, "Women sculptors may be numbered among the most radical of the vanguard artists of the 20th century. This is true. They may. However, if we focus only on the radical avant-garde, our critical lens will reinforce the idea that women artists can only be important if justified through their association with the masculinized avant-garde that pre-exists them. What of those who fall outside any modernist canon? Artists whose tiny archives reside in what the architectural historian Kirsty Waltz calls a non-institutional context. Waltz, researching the Australian interwar architect Nell Macready, observes that when researchers work with a non-institutional archive, they have to, quote, contend with the perceived significance of the work. The significance or insignificance and the work's quality become serious issues. For many feminist art historians, any woman artist is per se significant, and if the artist has been forgotten, they have been unjustly forgotten. But have some artists perhaps been justly forgotten? In short, what does a critical feminist art history do about insignificance and mediocrity? My paper offers a critical exploration of canon formation within, and by implication without, a woman-centered history of art. By way of case studies, it draws on three women's sculptures in the public realm in Germany between 1914 and 1933. I argue for a critical exploration of the intersection of provincial art worlds with women sculptors' professional practices. My inquiry is shaped by the political theorist Cynthia Enlow's question, where are the women? Enlow writes, feminist attentiveness to all sorts of women is not derived from hero worship. The consequence of Enlow's argument for feminist-informed scholars is to pay attention to all women creatives, no matter where we find them. Elsa Oeltjen-Kasimir, Friede Kieser-Maruhn, and Lisa Simcik-Kroemer constitute limit test cases that afford glimpses into parallel provincial art worlds. Their professional successes depend on their regional contexts and are not replicable in cosmopolitan centers. These sculptors are today even less well known than the general run of women artists. Their public works include war memorials, architectural projects, and community statues. They operate within what I call parallel provincial art worlds, adapting Howard S. Becker's sociological categories of art worlds. Within their provincial parallel worlds, they garnered public commissions and, in the case of Oeltjen-Kasimir, accolades from local critics, all surprisingly untainted by gender bias. Judged against urban yardsticks of cutting-edge modernism, their works appear formally conservative. Let me start with Elsa Oeltjen-Kasimir. She exhibited annually in local venues, carried out at least 3 public commissions, and was reviewed favorably by the local press. Many of her pieces exist in triplicate or quadruplicate, a sign of lively interest among buyers. Her art was neither innovative in style, nor does it address subversive subject matter. Local reviews emphasized local ties, above all Oeltjen-Kasimir's use of the local material of Bockhorn clinker. Clinker is a type of brick that is fired at temperatures so high that the initial sintering process closes the pores of the material. In the words of a 1914 manual, vitrified clinker bricks are made of somewhat fusible clays which are able to retain their shape at a high temperature. The process gives clinker its characteristic shimmering metallic surface. Oeltjen-Kasimir's clinker came from the Bockhorn brickworks near Oldenburg. Clinker bricks were hard and durable and primarily used in street paving and construction. Oeltjen-Kasimir's use of what was essentially a building material gave her an edge, as clinker was rare in the world of sculpture. A certain F.B. wrote in 1929, "Odd how she wrestled such a soulful effect from this crude material that is not by nature at all expressive." F.B. continued with a paean to Oeltjen-Kasimir's struggle with clinker that appeals to us Oldenburgers, who are blessed with this characteristic clay. In 1931, Oeltjen-Kasimir furnished 90 clinker tiles for the facade of the new railway station in the suburb of Neustadt in the city of Bremen. The newly opened railway line was to service the route between Bremen and nearby Oldenburg. All the speeches at the opening ceremony and Oeltjen-Kasimir's designs emphasized this connection. The facade was bombed in 1945, but photographs show 6 pilasters, each with 15 rectangular reliefs on individual tiles. The tiles are made of Bockhorn clinker and showed types that represent persons, items, and livestock transported by the railway. Sheep, horses, a peat cutter, a market woman, an engine driver, a shunter, a porter, even some clinker brick manufacturers, top right. This is an art of affirmation, of relatable characters and gentle humor. Local reviewers highlighted the, quote, delightfully charming, amusing, and, quote, humorous mode. The whimsical tone is well exemplified by the ticket controller, here seen at left, described by one writer as, quote, all dignity and zeal, emphasized by his bushy beard and spectacles. Another journalist was sure that the facade sculptures would, quote, give travellers much joy. One tile has a portrait of the regional railway director, with legs apart, arms akimbo, brows furrowed, and moustaches bristling. The director's obituary 2 years later describes the tile as showing, quote, a large imposing gentleman with bushy moustaches and a pince-nez on his nose, and between his legs there winds an entire railway train. According to the obituarist, the railway director, upon recognizing himself in the tile, was, quote, all smiles. The word used to evoke the smiles is the German schmunzelnd, a present participle that conveys an indulgent and a benevolent smiling to oneself. The tiles as a whole may be said to have elicited such good-natured smiling. This is Schmunzel sculpture, and art history has no theory for it. On to my second case study. Friede Kieser-Maruhn lived and worked in Dessau, known to art historians as the site of the Bauhaus after 1925. Kieser-Maruhn's career, though, was spent entirely outside the Bauhaus's purview, indeed entirely outside avant-garde circles. Kieser-Maruhn participated in the annual exhibitions of the League of Visual Artists Dessau, but exhibitions were not the focus of her livelihood. Her creative practice was twofold. She made public sculptures for local councils within Dessau, and she mass-produced ceramic animal figurines for sale via mail order. Together with her sculptor husband, she founded in 1925 the workshop Waldkaterkeramik, translated as Forest Tomcat Ceramics, a company with limited liability and a startup capital of 5,000 Reichsmarks. The business published a catalogue of photographs of Kieser-Maruhn's figurines in sizes mostly between 11 and 22 centimeters. The terms of sale informed prospective purchasers that an order included shipping costs, approximate delivery times, payment on receipt of invoice. The terms of sale and the illustrated catalogue show that the Waldkaterkeramik was a commercial concern, and I should note a very profitable one, closing only with the couple's deaths in 1947. Waldkater, tomcat animals, continue to surface in auctions today. Kieser-Maruhn's public commissions include bears on a meteorological station, today a clock, a hare fountain in the suburb of Siedlung in Dessau, bombed in 1943, and the forest tomcat, her company mascot, atop an advertising column. The tomcat gave the nearby street its still used name. Kieser-Maruhn's works are not modernist in style, nor even very good. This billy goat looks rather crudely made. Her sculptures are an indicator of the other Dessau, perhaps of the locals who opposed the Bauhaus. In fact, Kieser-Maruhn's father-in-law lost his job as director of Dessau's Applied Art School when the Bauhaus co-opted it and replaced him with Walter Gropius. In 2011, a local preservation society secured a local artist to replace Kieser-Maruhn's destroyed hare, which now forms the centerpiece of the neighborhood's annual street party. A journalist avers that the hare is much loved by children, and one adult remembers climbing the monument as a child before it was bombed. Here we see the street party and also some neighborhood people trimming a tree so that the tomcat is visible once more. At this point, it may be helpful to turn to theorists of art geography, provincialism, and the periphery. Innovation is usually located in cultural centers, and in the case of Germany, in the metropolis of Berlin. George Kübler notes that innovation may also occur away from economic centers, but at a slower pace. Quote, "The tedium of provincial life is proverbial." In 1922, one Berlin critic echoed this idea of tedium when he dismissed the city of Rostock as a, quote, "not very exciting backwater." Kübler finds that artistic production in provinces tends to be derivative. By contrast, the Marxist art historian Nikos Hadjinicolaou argues that the periphery actively resists influence from the center. Enrico Castelnuovo and Carlo Ginzburg, in their study of regional schools in Renaissance Italy, likewise suggest that the periphery is a site of alternative production and resistance to dominant models. It has become one of critical art history's tenets that art is worth studying if it may be read as resistant, subversive, or alternative. Such a model drives researchers to trawl regional locations for signs of innovation and originality, which are actually signs of conformity to prevailing modernist standards in centers. This is akin to feminist art historians validating hitherto marginalized women artists by assimilating them to canonical, read patriarchal standards. There is, though, nothing resistant or subversive in the art of Kieser-Maruhn and Oeltjen-Kasimir. Theirs is a middle-of-the-road affirmative art, a feel-good art. Unlike models that reverse these terms in order to privilege the periphery as subversive, Terry Smith, in his 1974 article on Australian art, argues that provincialism is an attitude of, quote, subservience to an externally imposed hierarchy of values. What is created is a, quote, competent art within current categories. In the case of Kieser-Maruhn and Oeltjen-Kasimir, it is a competent art within conventional traditionalist, not avant-garde categories, and not ones necessarily imposed by the outside. In fact, many Dessauers resisted the Bauhaus as an imposition. My final case study is Lisa Simcik-Kroemer. Simcik-Kroemer is unique among women artists for her prolific career as a war memorialist. With the exception of Käthe Kollwitz's No Woman in Weimar, Berlin received a commission for the masculinized field of war memorials, though there were a few women in regions doing this. Simcik-Kroemer produced at least 13 war memorials, all dispersed across small to tiny agrarian and dairy-producing communities in Thuringia, near Gera, her town of residence. The memorials, statues, stones, and stelae are placed in cemeteries, village squares, and woodlands in often remote locations. Here is one of them. Simcik-Kroemer's professional practice, like Kieser-Maruhn's, ran along parallel tracks to that of the modern art gallery network. Her letter had read Lisa Simcik, woman, sculptor, workshops for modern sculpture, war commemorations, gravestone art, architectural sculpture, portrait applied art, followed by her bank account details. This indicates a commercially founded sculptural enterprise. Simcik-Kroemer's public persona could not be further from the cosmopolitan new woman. She was a mother and the wife of a pastor whose standing in the community no doubt helped her reputation. Many of her war memorials are located at parish churches. One village publication of 1920 proclaimed that their memorial had been created by pastor's wife Lisa Simcik. Simcik-Kroemer's war memorials are part of a network of locally sponsored, community-based memorials of the kind found all over Germany, and for that matter throughout Europe. The memorials continue to speak to their communities 100 years on. Residents of Aga gather around their memorial every year with wreaths, speeches, and a choir. The local newsletter of 2018 offers an interpretation, quote, "The memorial created by Lisa Simcik in 1923 symbolizes the war-weary rider who is already very near to his home but does not reach it." Personally, I am of the view that Simcik-Kroemer's artistic achievements are moderate. Her figures often fall short of anatomical accuracy. Her horses, for one, are not entirely convincing. Their heads are blob-like, the manes and tails consist of swirling bulbous shapes, their legs are not anatomically attached. I would also contend that this did not matter at all to people whose grief was concretized in the memorials. Let me conclude with some pointers of general import beyond my 3 case studies. My findings convince me that no matter where you live and where you seek, if you dig, you will find them. Where are the women? They are to be found. No archive is too small, no informant too local, no artifact too insignificant. My resources range from local historians, enthusiasts, tour guides and archivists, distant relatives and random Wikimedia photographers, to online newsletters, databases, personal emails and blogs. These sources tend not to be scholarly, so the challenge is how to frame all this in a rigorous scholarly framework. Figures like Oeltjen-Kasimir, Simcik-Kroemer or Kieser-Maruhn, and beyond my case studies, others like them, are surprisingly difficult to integrate into an art history of, in this case, the 20th century. No matter how marginal any neglected and rediscovered artist is, upon reinstatement, writers tend to emphasize how unusual, innovative, and critical that artist actually was. According to art historical and revisionist logic, a neglected and later rediscovered artist was never rightfully neglected. Otherwise, what would be the point of rediscovering them? The challenge for us is how to write a history that is inclusive of a wide and contradictory range of practices. This paper has been an attempt at a theoretical framework that accounts for little-known non-innovative artists, drawing on theories of provincialism. It is also an attempt at interrogating feminist art history's own ideological biases. Thank you.